I'm glad to be here with you tonight, and uh, there's a lot that I want to say and do and keep you awake if possible. You see, there's three issues here that I got. I asked the leadership here, what do you want me to do tonight? And one said, give a missionary report. That will take 45 minutes. And another said, give a message. And that would take 45 minutes. And then we have a special treat here, and I'm not the special treat. There's a family in the audience tonight. Well, my mom's here, by the way. That's a special treat, but my mom's here. Hi, Mom. Peter and Nellie Sequeira are missionaries to Portugal, and they will be going back to Portugal in March, and they wanted to get together with my family before they went back. They've not really met my children. They've only seen my wife once at their wedding. But it's unfortunate that that's not going to be able to happen. But I'm speaking here, and they were in Rhode Island, so they came down. And they're here tonight, Peter and Nellie Sequeira, with their two children who are in the front here. And so there's going to be a little bit of a missionary report from Portugal as well. That's another 45 minutes. How to do that? All right, I gotta do this really quick, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to start by the projector behind me is up, and this should take 45 minutes, but I'm going to breeze through things, and then I'm going to invite Peter up, and I'm going to interview him, and you'll learn a little bit about the work in Portugal. So you can see the slide up above. There's Portugal, Poland, and Ukraine. And I do a lot of work in Portugal and in Poland. Ukraine is intersected in there because of the war and how many refugees that there are in Poland, etc. And so this is just a map. I want you to read it if you can. It's basically a map to show you there are very few evangelicals in Europe today. In fact, we often talk about the 1040 window, and the 1040 window, there's a great need for the gospel. Well, in Europe, there's a great need as well. Right here in Poland, you see that there are 5,000 Baptists or 102 churches, 24,000 Pentecostals, and there's 3,000 brethren, and there's 116,000 Jehovah's Witnesses. So the Jehovah's Witnesses outnumber the evangelicals put together. And the evangelicals in Poland don't even make up 1% of the population. So it's very, very small. Let's see. Slide. All right, Portugal. This is Portugal. And I want to talk about Portugal first. In my ministry in Portugal, I go there to sort of help three individuals, Peter and Nellie Sequeira, and then Carlos, which is mentioned here, and also a couple named Pedro and Graça Barbosa. And generally, I'm going for helping those people in the work that they're doing. And I'm going to invite Peter to come on up at this time, and I'm going to give him we're going to do a little interview as quick as we can to learn a little bit about Peter's work. Usually when Peter and I share the platform together, I'm speaking English and he's translating into Portuguese. So hopefully you won't make that mistake right now, right? All right, but I'm okay. So Peter, can you first tell us a little bit about how you arrived in Portugal and what you're doing there, how you met your wife, and basically the work that you're doing, right? Just very quickly. Yeah, you can say
Right, that's 90.
No.
Well, I felt the Lord's call to go to Portugal when I was actually a teenager, and I was visiting there with family, and it's too long of a story for me to tell, but I really felt strongly the Lord calling me there, and the rest of my teenage years I spent studying the Bible, getting myself ready, attending all of the Bible studies at church, asking lots of questions of our elders, listening to Christian radio, and just getting books when I could afford to read them, and and all that. And then finally, I was ready to go to Portugal at the end of high school. My parents said, "No, you have to go to university." And I fought with them a little bit, and they said, in Portugal they respect people who are educated, so it's actually good for your ministry. So I rushed through college, got my degrees, and then I was ready to go to Portugal. And my assembly by that time had diminished, and they said, "We can't afford to support you, and we're not going to send you out there to starve to death." And I said, "What happens to faith? Hudson Taylor, all these great stories." And they said, "Well, we just don't feel it's right." But then the Lord opened the door in an American Christian school in Portugal, needed a teacher. And one of the degrees I had gotten was to be a teacher, and I was a certified teacher in Rhode Island. And so I was able to get the job there. So I started out as a, what do you call it, tent maker. And then my elders were like, "Okay, now we're fine with you going. We'll commend you." And they sent me out. So that's how I got started with
Okay,
Portugal.
so you were in Portugal for X amount of years, single,
Yes.
and you liked rock climbing and you liked doing all those kind of dangerous missionary stuff,
Yes.
right? But there came a time when you just gave all that up and you needed a wife.
Yes, that's right.
In fact, I remember visiting him. And when I visited him and I would teach in assemblies and he'd translate, we would go in a car that was so broken down. I think one time it was raining and there was no windshield wipers. And I think another time you came back and told me that your car had just exploded. Is
Right.
that right? Was I there when that happened?
You were.
I was there. Yeah. Can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your cars?
Yeah, so I had a car. I bought it, it was 5 years old, and the man made a really good deal for me, and it was a trusty car. I had it for 17 years, Volkswagen station wagon, and then when Mark was there, I would take him to the various assemblies where he would be preaching. And then there was one day where he was in my home and he was working on his laptop. And I said, "Oh, I got to go do some shopping. I got to go somewhere. I forget what it was." And I said, "You want to come with or stay?" He goes, "Oh, I'll stay." And so I went. Well, as I got into town, smoke started coming out of my dashboard, and then flames. And then there was rush hour, so a lot of cars. And I realized if I stop my car right here in this one lane, I'm going to cause a lot of people a lot of grief. So I'm going to hold my breath because it was getting smoke filled. I opened the window and I drove for another kilometer to a place where I could pull over, and then got out of my car and pulled my stuff out. The Lord allowed me to pull all my things out, the documents, and then watched it burn. So
Yeah, so missionary life can be very exciting, right? And sometimes I remember being in that particular car and being scared to death. Talk about life of faith. I just prayed that I would live through the night, and that was that. Now, one thing, Peter's ministry is a Bible teaching ministry. There was a time when you you opened a school for children, and then that ministry came to an end. And he basically has a Bible teaching ministry in Portugal. And one of the things that I remember in his single days, almost every day, maybe, Peter would say to me in his home, "I need a wife." And I remember when Nellie finally came into his life. So can you tell us a little bit about that, just very briefly?
yeah, sure. Oh dear. So I don't know where to start.
Well, where was Nellie?
So Nellie was a missionary commended by her assembly in Canada to Japan,
To Japan, and you were in Portugal.
and I was in Portugal.
So how did you guys connect?
And so at the time I was on Facebook. I'm no longer on Facebook, but at the time I was. And that
So you were on Facebook to get a wife?
No, I was on Facebook. At the end of the year, I would clean up. In other words, sometimes you accept people, as friends, and then you realize, oh, this guy's swearing all the time and all this stuff. And so at the end of the year, I kind of eliminate some people, and I would add someone. I said, "Oh, what about so and so? I wonder if they're on," and I would add them on. And Facebook kept bringing up this group of people, like 5 people. You might want to be friends with these people because they have a lot of mutual interests and mutual friends. And Nellie was one of those people. So I thought, it's kind of weird to invite someone to be a friend who you really don't know. Um, and especially if it's a woman, And so I came up with a few rules for myself about who I could ask of strangers, and they had to have all these rules. They had to have like 15 mutual friends with me. They had to have clean language. And one of the rules was they can't be on Facebook all the time because that means they have no life, so they have to be rarely on Facebook. And I had a few rules like that. And she fit all the rules except the 15 mutual friends. I think she had 9.
30? Oh, how
Yeah.
can you have 50 mutual friends if you only have 30?
Well, it's 2 times.
Never mind. Keep going.
So anyway, one of her friends was Ruth Stifler. I don't know if some of you know of Ruth Stifler.
Wait. Do you guys know of Ruth Stifler? I know you know of Ruth Stifler.
So her husband is David Stifler, did ministry with children, and she and my mom were very good friends. So when I saw Ruth Stifler on there, I said, she counts like for 20. So I'll go ahead and invite her. And so I did, and it took her a day or two, and then she said yes. And so I wrote her back and said thank you, for accepting to be my friend. And then she looked me up to see who's this guy. And so she found me on a forum for Brethren Assemblies, and she found me just a few days earlier defending the use of a head covering for the women. And her assembly in Japan had just decided to not use head coverings anymore. And she was really struggling with that because she believed strongly in it. So when she read my article, it meant a lot to her.
Okay, so then what happened is at some point, you can correct me if I say anything wrong, because I was a witness to these historic events. And at some point, Nellie wrote and asked Peter, "What's your intention in this friendship?" And Peter very gently said, "My intention is to marry you," or something like that, right? And so Peter had an interview questions. And by the way, these interview questions that Peter has, I've been trying for about 7 years now, getting a hold of them for my children who are going to pass the streets pretty soon. But he had these interview questions, and they communicated. And after a while, they thought they should see each other. Right now, she's in Japan and he's in Portugal, and they've been communicating without ever doing it face to face. And I was in Portugal on the night that they finally met face to face on Zoom. Yes. And the rest is history. They now have 2 children, and they serve together in Portugal. And now I get better meals when I go there to their house. But it's really a joy to be able to encourage them and help them in the work of the Lord. Now, Peter, maybe you can help us with some of these pictures here. This is, well, tell us about these pictures if you don't mind.
Yeah, so this here on the left side is an assembly in a neighborhood of Lisbon called St. Catherine, Santa Catarina. And the English speakers, I learned this from the British missionaries that were there before I was, and who've now passed on, but they would fondly call it St. Cat's as an abbreviation. And that's really my home away from home assembly. I live far away, but I always enjoy going back there, and they like to have me there. So it's right in downtown Lisbon. Great ministry for evangelism. This is the street that Lisbon. This is another street movement.
So what tell us about this street?
So
Wasn't this picture on the Citadel magazine front page?
that's right. Yes.
What can you tell us about?
So that assembly we just saw was started in 1907, I believe, by a British missionary. And then that assembly a few years later, I think 1915 or so, started this one across the other side of Lisbon, of what was today Lisbon is much bigger than it was back then. And so this assembly just celebrated 100 years last year. And this is another, and there's one of those doors that there's some people coming into. So, so Mark will preach at both of these assemblies, and I'll interpret for him.
Okay, you once told me that this is a mega church.
Yes, so this assembly now, because of immigrants, a lot of immigrants from Brazil And from Portuguese-speaking African countries, there's several countries in Africa where the official language is Portuguese. And so they're coming mostly from Brazil and these African countries. And so a lot of believers have come and searched for a good place. Also, one of the elders of this assembly, his name is George. He's very evangelistic, which is rare in Portugal. And so people have come to Christ. So they have approximately 80 to 130 people per every Sunday morning. And in Portugal, the average size of a church, whether it's Brethren or Baptist, is 15 to 25. And so this would be considered a mega church in Portugal.
Okay. This is the inside of that mega church in Portugal. There's a lot of, as he said, a lot of evangelistic efforts going on in this particular region of Lisbon. And then a second person that I go visit is this guy named Carlos Oliveira. And this is the assembly that Peter and I are attending to speak. This is tell us about this.
So I was just talking about this at the table there with Ezekiel and others that were there at the table just now. But there's a connection with this assembly and this assembly here. This assembly commended a young man to the Lord's work in the early 1900s called Viriato to Portugal. And he went to Portugal and he started dozens of assemblies, 40 or more, all over the country. And he was a great evangelist, but he was also a great discipler. And one of the men that he discipled in his very old age was Carlos Oliveira. Carlos Oliveira was the one who started this assembly in the south of Portugal. So there's actually a connection here with Yonkers. So do you want me to? Well, it's they do have one little issue with the doctrine. I don't know if you want me to elaborate on that, but other than that, it's actually a very solid assembly in doctrine, in evangelism. They're constantly evangelizing. There's always new people attending their gospel meeting. It's a thriving church. They have a great Sunday school, and it's a wonderful church, except for that one little thing.
All right. All right. So I think this is maybe the last Portuguese slide. Can you tell us what's going on here?
Okay, so 1 hour north of us is a town called Marinha Grande, and you guessed it, that means Grand Marina. And so it's close to the ocean, as most of Portugal is actually. But it's a relatively new assembly started by a Brazilian missionary named Claudio. And he and I started working together about 2-3 years ago before I'm running out of starting to time just goes by faster and faster. But yeah, and so he's been evangelizing and very slowly people have been coming to Christ. Europe, as Mark will tell you, I think it's the same all over Europe. It's very hard, fallow ground. People just are not interested in spiritual things. And one example I give is if I'm on the train and I want to start a conversation with the person next to me about the Lord, if it's a European, if it's Portuguese or some other European, he'll just say, I don't want to talk about this. Because religion is personal and private. If it's a Brazilian or an African or someone from other countries, usually they'll engage with me and be very interested in learning whatever I have to say. So it's a big difference. And so a lot of people are finding it's easier to evangelize immigrants than it is to evangelize the actual Portuguese. So he's had that struggle, but slowly an assembly has formed. And just this summer, we moved into this storefront facility before we would meet in Claudio's house. And this is very good because the Portuguese don't like to go to a person's house they don't know very well. And so it's very hard to invite a Portuguese to come to a home church. But if you have a storefront, then they're okay with going. It's like neutral ground for them. And so he's been struggling reaching Portuguese. He's been reaching mostly Brazilians. But now with the storefront, I think we're going to start to see more Portuguese come.
Great. I think that well, thank you. The rest of these slides have to do with Poland, and I'm skipping the majority of them for tonight because I just want to get to one slide, and that's this one, 2 slides, this one here. Many of you got the updates that I have been giving when I was in Poland in January. And so you really, if you're reading them, you're caught up to date. My ministry is a Bible teaching, gospel preaching ministry in Poland. And I was there for 3 weeks in January, and in the will of the Lord, I'll be there for a little over 2 weeks in March as well. But I want to show you this picture here. This is the picture of the largest assembly in Poland. And it has about 300. I don't know exactly how many are in this particular assembly, but I know that it is quite large, probably over 300. And the picture that you see here, when I was there, it was even bigger than that. I've had a chance over the years to speak in this meeting. They like it when I come, and I was there on a Monday evening in January, and a few days after I came back from the States, the building caught fire, and the building was destroyed. Now, the reason why I want to point this out is because it's not just the largest assembly in Poland. It's probably the most influential Protestant church in Poland. The Lord has really done a great work in a village. In the early years, 30 years ago, when I first started engaging with this work with the brothers that were there on the ground, the Catholic Church in the area was just very, very against what was happening in this particular little church that had gotten started. But a lot of alcoholics were coming to faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, and the town, the village was changing as a result. People could not deny the change that was taking place among people who were former alcoholics and now had come to faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. And over the years, the work has grown, and it has grown tremendously in size. Next to the building, they have a ground where they do camp work. And most of that camp work is English camps. And in the summer, they would conduct these English camps, and they would preach the gospel. And many children over the years came to faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. So the work has been very influential. And this fire happened in the roof and destroyed the building. And I was told that the assembly had spent 10 years trying to get the building up to fire code, and the fire officials actually finally approved of it about 3 days before the fire took place. It destroyed the building, and yet some amazing things are happening as a result of it. So this next slide here is actually a short video, and I'm going to ask Brother in the back if you can play the video.
I say, God, I do not understand this world. Everything is dying and broken. Why do I see nothing but suffering? God, I'm asking, could this be your plan? Sin has taken hold of this whole land. Will you not say anything else to me? He said, where were you the day that I measured? Sunk the base and stretched the line over all the earth and carved out its cornerstone. Where were you the day that I spoke and told the sun to split the night open?
If we're going to just stop there, and you can actually turn off the video, turn off the PowerPoint. I'm going to stop the PowerPoint there. So I've been told that since this fire has happened, just about every denomination in Poland has contacted the meeting and has offered ways to try to help. Even this is really a surprise to me, even the Catholic Church in town had an offering for them. That really was a shock. When you think about 30 years ago, the opposition was so tremendously great. And I don't even know what to think about that, but that's that's what happened. And so they're rebuilding. In one sense, they hope to rebuild a little bit bigger because they've gotten the building's been too small for what they get there, and the ministry has been continuously growing. They've been planning new assemblies in the area. They do high lofts and things like that, but it really is a place where a lot of believers gather for various events. And being at the breaking of bread at this meeting is quite an experience. If you have 300 or more believers and they have one cup and they pass that cup along to everyone. And it just really is an amazing experience to just be together and to remember the Lord Jesus Christ in that particular assembly. CMML has offered to send funds to help with the rebuilding. It's probably going to take about a year to get the building codes or whatever they need to do, the permissions in order to start building. But there's a lot of believers who have the expertise to build, etc. And there's a great effort to work together in order to try to get past this particular event that has happened. All the camps this summer have been canceled that they do. And that really is sad. It really is sad. But the Lord has his purposes and his plans. And in the will of the Lord, I will be there. They're meeting in the school right now, in the local community. The mayor of the town called up. What can we do to help? I'm really shocked to see the way that the community is actually rallying around the assembly here, because they've seen the power of God over the last 30 years at work in this particular assembly.